My name is Ranger Tom Willis, assigned to the 2 Medicine District, Glacier National Park, Montana. I've been out here for 13 years, long enough to know the land, the rhythms of the backcountry, and the kinds of trouble people can get themselves into when they stop paying attention to where they're walking or what they're walking into. The first thing you need to understand is this: Glacier doesn't forgive. It doesn't care how experienced you are, how much gear you packed, or how many all-trails, reviews you scrolled through the night before. One wrong step, just one, and this place will take you, quietly, without warning. And that's exactly what happened last summer. August 12th, bright, dry day, one of the clearest we'd had all season. Rachel Burns, 26 years old, environmental science graduate student from Eugene, Oregon. She checked in at the ranger station around 6:40 a.m., had a valid backcountry permit, clean itinerary, emergency beacon, and a laminated trail map she'd probably triple-checked. She wasn't reckless. That's important. Her planned route wasn't especially dangerous. Scenic loop through the South Ridge, overnight camp at Oldman Lake, back by noon the next day. A hike hundreds of others complete each season without issue. I saw her briefly before she set out. She had that energy hikers get when they've been dreaming of a place for years and are finally standing at the edge of it. But sometime that afternoon, she vanished. We didn't know anything was wrong until the next morning, when she failed to check in at her designated ranger station. At first, we figured she was delayed. Maybe she stopped to rest, or decided to extend the trip by a few hours. It happens. Then her emergency beacon started pinging from a location nearly 2 miles off her trail. That's when things shifted. We launched the first search at sunrise. Helicopter pass, ground units. By 11 a.m., we found her pack. It was sitting upright, zipped closed, perched on a mossy boulder beside a narrow creek bed, like someone had placed it there with care. Not dropped, not discarded. And the strangest part? Her gear was still inside. Everything. Sat phone, food, map, compass, except her phone and water bottle. No footprints leading away, just a stretch of brush, torn in one direction, as if something much heavier than her had moved through there fast. We didn't say anything publicly, of course. You don't stir panic in peak season. But those of us in the field, we've seen enough to know when a disappearance stops looking like a misstep. 2 days later, we recovered her phone. It had been wedged beneath the roots of a black spruce, like someone or something tucked it there deliberately. Battery dead, but the storage intact. That's where I saw the photo, the last picture she ever took. She's standing on a granite outcrop, looking over her shoulder toward the tree line. She's smiling, but not for the camera. Like she sees something out of frame, something she thinks is worth capturing. And just beyond her, in the shadows between 2 larches, it's there. A shape. Low to the ground, limbs bent the wrong way, head tilted, not upright, not natural. No detail at first, just void, like a hole punched into the forest. But the longer you look, the worse it gets. It's not hiding, it's waiting. Some of the younger rangers tried to brush it off, called it a trick of the light, pareidolia, digital noise. But I've walked every inch of that range, logged more hours in those woods than most of them have years on the job. That shape, that thing, it's not a camera glitch. I've seen it before, never that clearly. Never in daylight, but it's real. Whatever followed Rachel off trail wasn't human. And I don't believe she simply wandered into a ravine or fell into a crevasse. Because the next day, another hiker, a man who hadn't heard anything about her case, came into our station with a broken arm and a shredded pack. Said he'd gone off trail to chase an elk shed, and something called to him. That was his word. Called. Said it didn't use words exactly, just a feeling. Like a hand on the back of your neck, guiding you somewhere you shouldn't go. Said he ran when he finally turned and saw it standing there. It wasn't wearing its face right, he told us. Like it wasn't finished yet. We airlifted him out the next morning. He won't step foot in Montana again. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that the disappearances stopped. But Rachel wasn't the first, and she sure as hell wasn't the last. This park, it keeps secrets. There are places here where the air gets too still, where compasses falter, where radios cut out for no reason. We call them dead zones. Old-timers call them older things. Whatever's out there, it doesn't live on the trail. It waits for the ones who step off it, and some don't even know they've stepped off. It followed me off the trail. It wants me to show others. Do not go off the path. This is MindFuel. What you've just heard is only the beginning. Every name, every date, every detail in this series is drawn from official ranger logs, missing persons reports, and first-hand accounts from those who came back changed. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, because in the next chapter, we open the file that Rachel never got to finish, her voice notes, her journal entries, and the one report she never had the chance to file. 3 days after Rachel Burns disappeared, before the story ever made national headlines, another call came in. This one didn't go through official park channels. It came from a payphone in Kalispell. A woman, frantic, near hysterical, said her niece hadn't returned from a day hike to Hidden Lake. The girl's name was Caitlin Morales, 17 years old, from Spokane. She'd come up to stay with her aunt for the week and begged to visit GLACIER, said she just wanted one hike. Just a few hours. She even left a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Hidden Lake, be back before 6. She never came back. We didn't take it lightly, not after Rachel, and not after what I'd seen in that photo. I was the one who answered the call that morning, and I asked to see any recent pictures of Caitlin before we dispatched anyone. Just to be sure it wasn't the same figure, wasn't some strange coincidence, some overlapping timeline. It wasn't Rachel, but the look in her eyes, something about it reminded me of the photo on Rachel's phone. That forced smile, that half second before the world turns. I called in Ranger Jules Hammond, solid tracker, former military. Doesn't scare easy. We gave her the coordinates from Caitlin's note and sent her up with 2 wildlife officers. Around 7:45 that morning, they reached the Hidden Lake trailhead. Conditions were strange from the start. There was no wind, and the morning fog, which usually burns off by 8 or 9 at the latest, seemed to thicken. It didn't make sense. Temperature was steady, no weather alerts, but the visibility dropped below 50 feet within minutes of them starting the hike. Jules radioed in at 8:13 a.m. They'd found boot prints, small, consistent tread pattern. One hiker, Caitlin. The prints followed the trail exactly. No sign of panic. No indication she'd run or change direction. But then, near a bend in the trail just before the lake overlook, the tracks ended. Mid-step, literally. One full print. The heel of the next print. And then nothing. Just damp trail, unbroken moss, and mist. They searched the area in a wide sweep pattern. Came up with nothing. But that wasn't the part that got to Jules. What got to her was what her compass did next. She'd pulled it out to reorient herself back toward the trailhead. She said the needle spun, slowly at first. Then it began circling like it was caught in a whirlpool. Never settled, not once. And when she took one step off the path to recalibrate, the fog thickened like a wall slamming shut in front of her. She couldn't see the boots of the officer standing 5 feet to her left. They got out of there, fast. When they returned, we reviewed the trail cam footage from that stretch of trail. We'd installed a few discrete cameras earlier that season to monitor bear activity near the lake. Most days they catch a few deer, the occasional fox, maybe a black bear lumbering through. That morning, we caught something else. First, Caitlin. Clear as day. Hiking alone. Hood up, earbuds in, glancing over her shoulder occasionally, maybe unsure about a sound or just being cautious. She stops once near a large spruce, looks straight into the trees. Then she keeps walking. And then, 10 seconds later, something steps into the edge of the frame. Not fast, not charging, just slow, deliberate, tall, thin, unnaturally so, no distinguishable clothing, no visible features, almost like it was made of the mist itself, but darker, wrong somehow. It just lingered, standing still in the shadows, watching her, and in the final frame, just before Caitlin walks out of view, she turns, stares directly at the camera, as if she knew we'd be watching later. Her face is blank, no panic, no emotion. Then the feed cuts. Some blamed it on battery failure or interference from the weather, but I've been reviewing these logs for years. That wasn't weather. That was something else entirely. And this is where things start overlapping in ways I can't fully explain. When we plotted Caitlin's last known position on the map, based on her boot prints and the camera location, it intersected with a separate missing persons report. Same sector, same week, different trail. A group of hikers claimed they heard someone calling for help off-path near Logan Pass. A girl's voice said she sounded close, maybe just a few yards into the trees. They stepped off trail, couldn't find anyone. But one of them swore they saw a figure standing behind the trees, motionless, just watching them leave. Same week, same stretch of backcountry, same damn mist. I reported all of this. I logged every detail, but no one higher up responded. Not really. We were told to focus on search and rescue protocols, not speculation. People get lost all the time, they told us. Don't let fear override facts. But here's what the facts don't explain. Why the mist moved in with no meteorological cause. Why her compass failed in a zone with no magnetic interference. Why multiple cameras glitched only in that area, that day. Why more than one person went missing in the same zone in less than a week. And why, when you listen to the slowed audio from the trail cam clip, there's a sound that shouldn't be there, like a breath, right behind the lens, like something were waiting. You can believe this or not. That's your choice. But I'll tell you this, those who walk these woods for a living, we know when a pattern starts to form, and this isn't coincidence. It's something older, something that understands how to use this park the way a spider uses a web. Caitlin Morales was never found. Neither was her phone. But we did recover a voicemail her aunt says was never delivered. The timestamp? 6:11 p.m. Just before sunset. I think I stepped off the trail, but I'm not alone out here. I thought it was a person, but it's not. This is MindFuel. If you're still listening, there's more. What you've heard is just one chapter in a file we were never supposed to open. Subscribe. Stay with us. Because in the next chapter, the forest speaks again. And this time, it leaves something behind. There's a place in Glacier the maps don't show. No trail markers, no signage, no mention in the park's visitor center materials. It doesn't have a name on record, but the few of us who've worked these woods long enough, we know what it is. We call it the Forbidden Valley. I didn't hear about it from a supervisor or read it in a briefing document. I heard about it from a man named Carl Avery, 36 years on duty. Glacier's longest-serving ranger until his retirement in 2000. When I was still green, still optimistic, I asked him what the strangest thing he'd ever seen in the park was. He didn't hesitate. "It's not what I saw," he said. "It's where I never see anything." He told me about the valley. Said it sits somewhere west of the Sea Bend, tucked into a stretch of rock and pine that doesn't show up right on satellite imaging. The tree line breaks there, and everything feels wrong. Like the air doesn't move. Like the soil never fully dries. "The animals won't go near it," he said. "You ever see mountain goats freeze at a ridgeline like they've hit an invisible fence? That's the edge of it. They feel it before they see it." At the time, I chalked it up to old ranger storytelling. You hear a lot of them. Cabin legends, echo tales, shadows in the brush. But Carl wasn't like the others. There was no bravado, no exaggeration. Just the quiet conviction of a man who'd seen too much and knew better than to talk too loud about it. He told me something else too, something that stuck. "You ever hear your name called in the woods?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "A couple times, usually turns out to be hikers looking for help." He shook his head. "Number I mean when you're alone, when no one should be out there. And it's your full name, the one you don't wear on your badge." I didn't answer. Because I had, and I never told anyone. Years passed. I filed it away as another one of Glacier's lingering mysteries, until we launched the drone. We were running a remote ecological survey near the Pegan Pass area, routine terrain mapping and vegetation sampling. Nothing fancy, just an off-season check of runoff damage and erosion points. We had clearance to fly a drone, small, commercial grade, nothing military, just enough to give us a few minutes of aerial footage. The flight path took us just past a granite bluff we'd never scanned before. Dense pine border, ground too unstable to send a team through, but the drone? Easy enough. We launched at 10:42 a.m., clear sky, minimal wind, good conditions. At first, the feed was normal. Tree canopy, broken brush, what looked like a dried stream bed, and then the footage turned. The trees opened into a clearing, but not like a meadow or an alpine field. It was too uniform, circular, like something had emptied it. No undergrowth, no signs of burn or cut. Just absence. Then the light shifted. Even through the lens, we could tell something wasn't right. The shadows bent the wrong way, like the sun had slipped sideways behind a curtain no one could see. And then there was movement. Blurry. Fast. Not enough detail to define shape, but enough to know it wasn't wind. Something large. Upright. It crossed the clearing in less than 2 seconds. The autofocus kicked in a frame too late, but just early enough to catch a vertical form leaning into the trees before disappearing again. The camera feed glitched. Screen fractured into digital noise. Then the drone stopped responding. No signal, no GPS ping, no impact location. It was like the air just swallowed it. We reviewed the footage frame by frame later that night. And in the split second before the interference, there's a shape behind the blur. 2 legs, elongated. A curve where the shoulder should be. And the impression of something facing the camera, though no features could be defined. But it was the final frame that chilled me. Just before the signal dropped completely, a single still image burned into the data before corruption took over. The drone's altitude at that moment was 86 feet, and in the corner of that frame looking up from the clearing was a face, blurred by distance but unmistakably human. Eyes wide, mouth closed, no expression, just watching. The only problem? That face. It was mine. That valley isn't marked because it doesn't want to be. Carl once told me, the land remembers where it was before we tried to name it. And whatever that clearing is, whatever waits there, it remembers us too. Animals won't cross the boundary. Hikers lose time near it. Compasses reverse course. And every so often, someone walks in who doesn't come back. I've seen the maps. I've seen the flight logs. And I've heard too many hikers say the same thing. I thought I heard someone call my name. I thought it was a friend. I thought I was going toward them. This is MindFuel. If you're still with us, you understand now. This isn't about myths. It's about what hides just outside our maps. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay close. Because in the next chapter, we follow a trail that shouldn't exist. The first pages were routine: checklists, route notes, weather observations. Day 1 entered the Highline Trail. Weather clear, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. No other hikers passed mile marker 4. Camped near a narrow basin above Haystack Butte. No issues. That was how his journal started. His name was Owen Mackey, 31, freelance wildlife photographer out of Bozeman. His permit and itinerary were in order. He'd planned for 4 days alone in the backcountry, documenting alpine wildlife and high-elevation terrain. He was experienced, well-prepared. By all accounts, he should have been fine. What we found later told a different story. It was day 2 when things started to change. Trail narrowing. Missed the cutback, decided to follow slopeline east, shortcut back to main path, he wrote. Saw stone stack marking what looked like an alternate trail, seemed intentional. He meant a cairn. Stacked rocks, hikers sometimes build to mark unofficial routes. It's discouraged for good reason. They often lead nowhere, or worse, lead others off trail by mistake. But this wasn't a mistake. He followed it. Cairns continue every 50 yards or so. Odd formation, balanced too perfectly, like someone meant me to follow. We know the location from his GPS watch, which pinged intermittently until it stopped transmitting midday on the 3rd day. We also recovered his journal in a dry bag near a ridge above place no one had logged before. There was no trail, no footpath, just game trails that ended in thick brush and stone. The journal entries grew shorter as they progressed. Cairns moved. I swear the last one was behind me before. Looked away to take a photo. When I turned back, it was 3 feet to the left. Same rocks, same stack, just moved. And then, sounds behind me. Steady steps, slow, never close, but constant. Like someone's matching my pace. Keep turning around, no one there, no prints. Wind is dead. Don't feel watched, more like mirrored. There's a drawing beside that entry. A crude sketch of a figure, long-limbed, too thin. No face, kneeling behind a cairn. Its hand is reaching toward the rocks. On the final 2 pages, his handwriting degrades, shaky, hurried, like it was written mid-step. I keep circling back. Every cairn is the same. GPS gone. Phone won't power. Lights changing too fast. It was noon 20 minutes ago. Now it feels like dusk. And then this. I stopped to drink. Looked up. Saw myself standing across the ravine. Same jacket. Same pack. Just standing, watching me. Then it turned and walked behind the trees. I didn't move. His last written sentence was a single line, pencil nearly broken under pressure. It's copying my movements. We found his gear, carefully set beside a tree with no branches, pack zip, sleeping bag still rolled, journal on top, like he'd been about to leave a note, or maybe he already had. What we didn't find was Owen. No tracks, no body, no sign of struggle, only the cairns. Still there, still stacked. But now, they formed a perfect ring around the clearing. I've led over 40 recovery missions in Glacier. I've seen what exposure does, what panic looks like in the woods. But this wasn't panic. This was method. Whatever he followed knew how to stay ahead of him, knew how to mimic him. And when the journal fell into our hands, someone else, someone higher up, took an interest. A man from interior. Quiet type, no badge, no introduction. He took the journal and said, "This isn't something we let spread." Too late. Because now you've heard it. This is MindFuel. What began with a shortcut turned into a mirror with no reflection. And next, we speak with someone who found one of the cairns. Not out in the wild, but outside their cabin, 50 miles from the nearest trail. Subscribe, stay sharp, and whatever you do, when the forest starts repeating your steps, don't stop walking. We received the message through an encrypted email. No name, no rank, just a subject line that read, "I have something you need to hear. Burn it after you use it." What followed was a transcript. A written account from a ranger who had served in Glacier for over a decade. We verified his credentials. He'd been in the system, his assignments tracked, his last year listed as an extended leave for medical recovery. But no one would say what happened. This is what he sent us. Don't use my name. Don't even try to find out who I am. Just listen to what I'm telling you. This was 4 years ago, early autumn, end of season. Trail closures had already started, and I was doing one last solo sweep along the northeast basin near Swiftcurrent Pass. No tourists, no volunteers, just me and 40 pounds of gear. I was 2 days into a 3-day patrol, camped above an old elk trail, early fog coming in. That's when I heard it. Someone yelling. Sounded young. Male voice. Maybe early 20s. Calling for help. Short bursts, like he didn't want to be too loud. I made contact about 30 minutes later. He was crouched under a bent tree, arms hugging his knees, breathing hard, no visible wounds. He looked cold, alert, but off. When I asked what happened, he said he'd gotten separated from his brother. Then he paused, looked at me, and said it again, word for word. Not like a retelling, more like a repeat. Same cadence, same tone, like an echo, but delayed. I said, "We'll get you out of here." And 5 seconds later, he said, "We'll get you out of here." My stomach dropped. I thought maybe he was in shock. But then he stood up and began copying my posture, 1 second behind, like a mirror that lagged. I lifted my hand. So did he. I stepped left. He stepped left. Not mirrored, matched. I started breathing heavier on purpose. Deep inhale, long exhale. He did the same, exactly 5 seconds after me. Not just sound, motion, rhythm. That's when I said something in Spanish, just to throw him off, something simple. "¿Dónde está tu hermano?" He didn't repeat it. He smiled. Big, too wide. Nothing in his eyes moved, just the mouth, like a puppet finally pleased with its performance. And then he spoke, not a copy, not delayed, just said one thing in perfect English. "You're the first one who tried to trick me." I backed away slowly, didn't run. I've been stalked by mountain lions. I know not to bolt, but this wasn't instinctual. This wasn't an animal. This was something pretending. And it wanted me to know it almost had me. I don't remember the hike back, not clearly, just flashes, trees leaning the wrong way, footprints that matched mine before I made them. When I made it to the trailhead, my radio finally picked up a signal again. First words I heard weren't static. It was my own voice, saying, "Don't run." But I hadn't said that. Not then. I don't patrol alone anymore. I don't camp in Glacier. I haven't been back since. Whatever's out there, it doesn't want to hurt you right away. It wants to learn you. So it can wear you right. Like a voice, like a coat. You think you're alone? Then you realize something waited to hear what you'd sound like when you got scared. Tell your listeners to stay on trail. And if they ever hear their own voice whispering through the trees, tell them not to answer. Because once it knows how you sound, it starts learning how to be you. We reached out again. No response. That ranger's login credentials were wiped from the internal system 2 days after we received the message. No further emails, no record of where he went. Just that one final warning looping in our minds. It starts learning how to be you. This is MindFuel, and the echoes don't stop at Glacier. In the next chapter, we find out what happened to a group of hikers who recorded audio in the forest and brought something back with them, inside the tape. Subscribe, stay alert, and remember, if you hear yourself calling from the trees, don't answer. We weren't supposed to access her device. Standard protocol requires digital devices from missing persons to be processed through the NPS database and then sealed, handed off to the Interior Department for federal classification. Most of the time, it's uneventful. Phones run dead. Cameras are waterlogged. The contents don't tell us much. But this one did. This one told us too much. The phone belonged to Camille Delaney, 24, backpacker from Missoula. Went solo for a weekend trip to Cracker Lake. Last confirmed sighting was at a trailhead camera just past the ranger station. Time-stamped 7:12 a.m., Saturday. By Sunday afternoon, her emergency contact reported she hadn't checked in. The search started within hours, but by then the trail was already cold. What we did find, 4 days later, was her phone. It had been placed, not dropped, on a mossy flat rock just off the trail, screen down, battery drained, tucked beneath a cluster of huckleberry brush like someone had intentionally hidden it, but wanted it to be found eventually. We recovered the phone, pulled the SIM, downloaded the internal files. Nothing unusual at first. Scenic, panoramas, selfies, at overlooks, pictures of her gear layout. A map photo, a fire starting tutorial saved from Pinterest. Then came the final album, a folder named Z Last, created sometime after her final text had been sent out. There were 12 photos inside. The first 7, random, out-of-focus shots. Some dark, some tilted, none of them showing Camille directly. Almost like she'd been holding the phone at her side while it snapped shots on its own. The 8th photo caught our attention. A large cedar tree, centered, crisp, framed like she had stopped and focused the lens carefully. Behind the tree, half shielded, was a figure. Tall, slender, motionless. No features visible. Just length. Like it was folded against the bark, arms to its sides, head tilted slightly. The kind of image that takes a second to register. The 9th photo. The same tree. The figure closer. Not approaching, not walking, like the distance had changed, but the background hadn't. The 10th photo. Nothing but branches. Blurred motion. A streak of gray where something had passed too close to the lens. 11. A shot of Camille's own shoulder. Like the phone had been lifted just behind her. She's looking to the left. Face half turned, unaware. 12. The final photo. Camille's back. Camera angle from directly behind her. The shape now inches away. Unclear, blurred by movement or interference, but unmistakably tall, towering. Its limbs not quite right, like joints bending where there shouldn't be any, and a suggestion of something where the mouth should be. Not a smile. More like the outline of parted skin. We pulled the metadata from each file. That's when the timeline broke. The first 9 photos were time-stamped between 4:27 p.m. and 4:34 p.m., just before Camille's estimated time of disappearance. The last 3? Timestamps placed them after the official window, 6 hours later, at 10:51 p.m., and Camille's phone was offline by then. Dead. According to its logs, it powered off at 5:02 p.m., which means someone, or something, powered it back on and used it. We brought the images to a digital forensics technician who occasionally consults for SAR operations. Name was Ranger Adrian Frey. Tech-savvy, level-headed, had handled worse. He took the phone, extracted deeper logs, packet data, and thermal bleed from the camera lens. He was supposed to report back in 2 days. He never did. We found his workstation still powered on, screen locked. His keys were still on the desk. The office door closed behind him, his badge left on the hook. He was last seen leaving the Ranger Tech Wing at 11:58 p.m. CCTV footage cuts out 6 seconds later. Just static. No explanation, no sign of forced exit, no vehicle missing. He simply didn't come home. The forensics report he left behind, only half finished, contained one line highlighted in yellow. Photo 12 captured at 10:51:44 p.m. Device was at 7% battery. Object in frame exhibits motion blur inconsistent with human stride. And beneath it, a handwritten note in pencil. It took the photo from her height. But she was never that tall. This is MindFuel. If you're still listening, you now understand this isn't about isolated events. They're connected. The photo, the echo, the trail. What watches from the trees is learning, growing closer, and now it's reaching for what we leave behind. Subscribe. Follow the series, because next, we revisit the Ranger cabin where one man tried to document it, every sound, every movement, until it started copying those too. It started with a wristwatch. Nothing dramatic. No scream in the woods, no violent event. Just a ranger looking down after crossing a small ridge near CA Peak and realizing that his watch had stopped exactly 2 hours ago. He tapped the glass, adjusted the crown. Nothing. Then he checked his backup, a small clip-on field timer he used for trail logs. Also dead. No sign of damage, just blank. Both of them frozen at 2:47 p.m., and yet the sun was nearly gone. He assumed it was a battery issue, wrote it off. Until the next week, when another ranger, this one on the Hidden Lake Circuit, reported the exact same thing. Watch dead, GPS scrambled, time slipping. Then more reports came in, rangers with solid navigational training, people who lived and breathed compass work, started losing minutes. Then hours. They'd step off trail to inspect something, an animal print, a cairn, a voice, and when they returned, it would be near dark. Their radio logs, still time-stamped in the past. Their watches, still frozen. Their memories, fragmented. They could remember turning their head, but not turning around. Remember kneeling to tie a boot, but not standing back up. Remember blinking, and the sun had shifted positions in the sky. Then came the report from Ranger Kepler. 5 years of field duty, reliable, logical, never reported anything even remotely strange, until that day. He was stationed near the Red Eagle Lake trailhead, said he was doing a basic day patrol. Nothing remote, just perimeter recon. Logged his location near the ridge at 10:32 a.m. His next recorded signal came from a thermal trail sensor at 4:58 p.m., 6 miles away. Through terrain, he never entered. We found him standing on the trail, confused, dehydrated, one sock missing, scratches around both ankles. No major injuries. No memory of how he got there. He said, "I remember kneeling to retie my boot, then I was here. I didn't walk here. I just opened my eyes and I was standing." His GoPro was still attached to his vest. It had been recording the entire time. We scrubbed through the footage, hours of seemingly uneventful trail footage. No visual contact, no sudden jolt, no strange noises, just trees, wind, except for the breathing. It begins exactly 48 minutes after he kneels. A soft exhale. Then nothing. Then again, closer. Then again, right behind the mic. No movement, no footsteps, no sound of approach, just breathing. It continues for 2 full hours, always behind the camera, never stepping into view. We froze the audio frame, ran spectral analysis. The breathing didn't match Kepler's resting pattern or respiratory rhythm. And more disturbing, each cycle of breath included a soft undercurrent. Not a voice, not words, something mimicking them, like the form of speech without actual meaning, like it was trying to learn how. This pattern, this distortion of time, memory, and movement became more frequent in one region of the park. A 3-mile radius between Sie Bend and the northwest boundary of the Forbidden Valley. We stopped logging trails through that area after the 5th report, not because of what we could prove, but because of what we couldn't explain. This isn't just about disappearance or mimicry. This is about possession of time itself. It doesn't just follow you. It follows your clock. It interrupts your sense of before and after. It replaces seconds with silence, hours with absence, until you start wondering if anything in your life before the moment you stepped off trail was even real. And by the time you look down at your watch again, it's not your watch anymore. It's still ticking, but it's not ticking for you. This is MindFuel. If you're still listening, start writing things down. Mark what time you started. Mark what time it is now. And in the next chapter, we meet the survivor who kept hearing his own voice outside his tent, even though he'd never spoken. Subscribe, watch your time. And if your GPS ever blinks out mid-hike, keep walking. Whatever's near you doesn't want you to stop. Fire is a tool out here. It clears deadfall, cleans the undergrowth, keeps the forest healthy, and when used right, it brings balance back to the land. Controlled burns are one of the oldest practices in conservation and the most effective, unless the land refuses to burn. That's what happened in the northeastern quadrant of GLACIER, an area that had already been flagged twice in previous reports. Sparse wildlife, time distortions, hiker disappearances, unstable signal zones. Still, by protocol, the fire crews tried to contain it. A burn was ordered after a dry lightning storm raised fire danger to level 4. The ignition team went out. They prepped the ground, cut lines, laid down drip torch fuel across a half-mile boundary. They did everything right, but nothing caught. They lit the perimeter. The torches hissed. Flames licked at the brush and then curled into smoke. Just smoke. No spread, no character. Just the illusion of fire that never took. They tried 3 more times. Same preparation, same torch, same exact failure. As if the land beneath that stretch had been sealed shut, like it rejected combustion, like it had made a decision long before the crew ever arrived. Then came the ash circles. That's what they were called in the report. Concentric circular residue formations, diameter ranging from 4 to 7 feet, containing fully blackened skeletal remains of ungulate fauna. Deer, or something close to deer. The circles had no entry points, no signs of flame marks leading in, just perfect round beds of ash with bones at their centers, so evenly burned they crumbled at the slightest wind. And these circles weren't found before the crew tried to burn the ridge. They appeared after. The burn boss on site, Ranger Halbrook, flagged the incident and called it geothermal anomaly. That was the term they used in the incident log. Off the record, he told me something else. It felt like the ground was watching us, like we weren't supposed to touch it, and when we tried, it showed us what it could do on its own. A few days later, a tribal elder was brought in to assess the site, unofficially, quietly. He stood just outside one of the circles, didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was low, steady. "The land here remembers," he said. Not what was done to it, what was invited. We asked him what that meant. He didn't explain. He only looked toward the unburned ridgeline, where the torches had failed to catch, and said, "Fire won't take what already belongs to something else." We showed him the photographs, the circles, the bones, the distorted heat map footage from the burn drones. He only nodded. Then he added one last thing. If the fire won't touch it, maybe you shouldn't either. He left without taking anything with him, not even the water we offered. I've never seen a man walk away from a place with that much urgency, yet that much silence. Weeks later, the burn zone grew strange. Grass returned where it had been cleared. Trees that had been cut back showed new growth in wrong seasons. Birds avoided the airspace above it, and a new circle appeared, this time without fire, just a ring of dead soil. Nothing in it, nothing above it, not even insects. Fire is meant to cleanse. But what happens when the land doesn't want to be cleansed? What happens when it refuses the flame? Because it isn't done keeping what it holds. Something in Glacier knows how we try to undo it. Something chooses what stays and what disappears. And now, even our oldest safeguard, our control over flame, is being denied. This is MindFuel. You've seen the signs, the echo, the trail, the time. Now, even fire, our last defense, won't follow command. What's left is a question we're not prepared to answer. But in the next chapter, we try. We bring in a researcher who found a signal buried in the soil beneath that unburned land. A signal that pulses, with pattern, with rhythm, with intent. Subscribe. Watch closely. And if the forest starts rebuilding itself behind you, don't go back. We used to think it only watched, listened, imitated footsteps, borrowed voices. But what we're starting to see now, what's been unfolding over the last few seasons, is something else. It doesn't just echo, it builds, it learns. The first reports were odd, but not alarming. A ranger out near Gunsight Pass came across what looked like a basic backcountry setup. Tent, backpack, mess kit, clothes line. Nothing unusual, except there hadn't been a registered permit for that zone in over a week. He called it in, waited for backup, took photos from a distance. When the second ranger arrived, they approached together. Everything appeared intact. Tent pitched cleanly, boots lined at the flap, pack half unzipped, sleeping pad laid out. Standard layout. Looked like someone had just stepped away for a water refill, except when they touched the tent fabric. It wasn't nylon. It felt soft, damp, like something that had grown into the shape of nylon. The poles weren't aluminum. They bent when pressed, flexed like cartilage. Inside the pack, a tangle of fibers and dried husk that looked like canvas from a distance, but cracked like bark. The food wrappers? Pliable, sealed shut. But when cut open, they were filled with what looked like mud shaped like granola. It wasn't trash. It wasn't forgotten. It was designed to look just close enough. Since that day, more of these campsites have appeared. Always just off trail. Always where a hiker might feel safe stumbling into them by mistake. One ranger described it best in their field log. It's like walking into a room someone's pretending to live in. You see the furniture, the belongings, the layout. But the longer you stay, the more it feels like the room was made from memory. Like someone remembered what a human campsite looked like and tried to rebuild it using the wrong instructions. And then came the fire ring. A perfect circle of stones, char inside, burnt wood, standard setup, until they tried to move one of the stones, and it pulsed, not visually, not with light, with heat, a rhythm pulsing outward like a heartbeat, like the ring had a center, a core, and it knew it had been touched. We brought in a biologist to examine one of the tents left behind in a new growth area just beyond Logan Pass. She ran samples through field spectroscopy. The results came back with a one-word under composition: organic. Ligament textures, pore-like structures, filaments that weren't moss and weren't fungus, something in between, something designed to resemble. When she zipped open the front flap, She stopped moving completely, just stared into the dark space inside. "There's no floor," she whispered. "Just a mouth shape, just below the ground skin." The samples were destroyed shortly after extraction. No one ordered it. No one admitted to doing it. And still the campsites continue to appear. Always near where we lost someone, always facing the trail. Narrator. Measured, deliberate tone. It's not a cryptid, not an animal. This is a pattern. It observes, it imitates, and it constructs the comfort we've taught it to fake. You want shelter? It will give you one. You want warmth? It will offer it. You want rest? It's already building a place for you to sleep. A ranger who stumbled on one of these sites at dusk said it best before resigning his post 3 days later. "I think it wanted us to feel safe before it decided who to take. This is MindFuel. And now we know it's not just walking behind us anymore, it's building beside us, replicating what we leave behind, testing our habits, waiting to get it right." But in the next chapter, one ranger finds out it's no longer just mimicking our campsites. It's building something deeper, something beneath. Subscribe. Keep your eyes open. And if you ever walk into a perfect campsite with no footprints leading to it, don't sit down. They say when you're lost in Glacier, your best chance at survival is to stay put and call for help. But what if the call makes it through, and the voice on the other end doesn't belong to anyone at all? The transcript begins at 3:14 a.m. dispatch log, Flathead County, 911. Incoming cell signal, no caller ID, no location data, but a voice, a man's voice, ragged, stumbling, words broken up by static and panic. "Off trail, something's following, not right. I need help. Bleeding. Can't find the path. It's behind me." The dispatcher followed standard protocol, asked for a name, repeated the request 3 times. The caller only responded once. "I'm still me. I think I'm still me." Then the call cut out. Seconds later, a faint ping gave up a rough GPS coordinate. East slope near Ptarmigan Tunnel. Ranger Madsen was closest. He got the radio call and made it to the area just before 4 a.m. His body cam footage begins with normal terrain. No movement, no obvious signs of distress. Then he rounds a switchback. There, lying in the middle of the trail, is a phone. Screen shattered, still warm. Next to it, a smear of blood. Light. Not pooled, but distinct. And leading away from the phone, up the slope. He followed it. Slowly, the trail narrows. Pines close in. No prints, just that single path of blood, thinned out the higher it goes. Almost like whatever was bleeding had stopped, or didn't need to bleed anymore. At the top of the incline, the blood simply ends. No body, no struggle, just a half ring of disturbed soil and a single sock hanging from a low branch. The sock was inside out. They brought the phone back to base, recovered what was left of the final call. It had saved automatically to cloud cache, only 54 seconds long. The voice is panicked, but wrong, like it's struggling to match tone and inflection, like the words are being spoken from memory, not instinct. Then came the background sounds. An audio forensics specialist isolated 2 clear biological signatures during the call. The first was obvious: human heartbeat. Fast, elevated, consistent with someone running in fear. The second matched the rhythm of the first, almost identical, except for one difference. It wasn't coming from the caller. It was coming from just behind the mic. 2 heartbeats. One voice, no echo, no layering. Both heartbeats reacting to the same fear, as if whatever was near him was just as excited, just as ready. The tech said something else before sealing the file. Something off-handed, but no one forgot it. If I didn't know better, I'd say the second heartbeat wasn't chasing him. It was pacing him, step for step. You can't fake a heartbeat. You can mimic a voice, copy footsteps, build a fake campsite, wear someone's shape like a coat. But heartbeats? That's something primal, something internal. And now, whatever's out there has found a way to sync with it. This is MindFuel. If you're still with us, you've heard what at the most never will. The calls from the edge, the echo in the woods, the tent that breathes, the ground that refuses fire, and now the voice that cries for help, wearing fear like a costume. But next, we talk to the last ranger to ever respond to one of these midnight calls, and what he found was already inside his cabin. Subscribe. Stay alert. And if you ever call for help in the wilderness, listen carefully to the breathing on the other end. You might not be alone. There are logs that never make it into the system. They're recorded, typed, submitted, but somewhere between the desk and the archive, they disappear. Sometimes it's blamed on clerical error, sometimes on policy, and sometimes it's because what was written down doesn't fit the story. We want people to believe about our parks. This was one of those logs. The voice is Ranger Everett Colburn, 12-year veteran, Glacier's eastern boundary team, quiet, dependable, kept to himself. His final report came in at 4:17 a.m., submitted directly through the emergency uplink line. It bypassed the local station, went straight to Washington. This is what it said. If you're reading this, then you already know something's wrong. You've seen the call logs, you've seen the footage, you've heard the breathing. I stayed longer than I should have. I ignored what the others saw, wrote off the distortions, the mimics, the hollow campsites. I kept telling myself it was isolation, paranoia, high-altitude madness. But I was wrong. They don't eat the missing. They wear them. It's how they get close. It's how they pass. They study what we look for in the woods. Distress, confusion, movement, and then they shape themselves around it. I saw it happen. I have the stills. Pull camera tower 7B, August 2nd, 3:14 p.m. It's a closed trail. Had been since spring runoff took the bridge. No one was supposed to be there. But the footage shows someone walking out, calm, alone. They're wearing a red Columbia jacket, sunglasses, moving like they know the trail. But the timestamp, that jacket belonged to Grace Kettering. She went missing 10 months ago. We never found her body. But that thing was wearing her teeth, not in its mouth, across its face, like a grin it forgot to stop making. Another clip, August 10th. 2 hikers pass trail marker 42. One of them stumbles, limps. The other turns back to help. But the one that fell doesn't move like they're hurt. They move like they're correcting, like they didn't know how to fall until they saw someone else do it. And when they stand, they're taller. Not by much, just enough to notice. Watch the footage closely. Their shoulders shift. Their neck jerks, like it's learning how to be supported. They reach for the other hiker's arm, and their hand bends the wrong way first. Then they adjust, like they're still figuring out how to wear them. This isn't a creature, it's a behavior. It spreads, and it's getting better. I don't think they live out there in nests or caves. I think they follow us back. The report ended with a single JPEG attached. Grainy, low light, security still. Front gate of Glacier's East Station, caught from above. A person is standing at the edge of the camera's range, but they're looking up, directly into the lens. Their clothes match a ranger's uniform, but the badge number is backward. Their face isn't aligned right. Eyes too low, mouth set slightly left of center, like it was stretched onto a mold that didn't fit. The final line of Colburn's report was redacted in the official release. Black bar. Security clearance override. but the draft version was saved to an off-site drive, and the line was simple. Glacier is not safe, not anymore. This was his last transmission. Everett Colburn's cabin was found abandoned the next morning. Coffee still warm, boots by the door, bed untouched. The door wasn't broken, the window wasn't open, but his radio was still transmitting. And from the edge of the log, a voice whispered, "I think I've got it right now." This is MindFuel, and this was Glacier. You've heard the echoes, the mimicry, the trail that loops backward, the flame that won't burn, the call that didn't come from a person. You've seen what it leaves behind, and what it wears. But if you think it's still only in the wild, you haven't been listening. Subscribe. Watch the patterns. And if someone walks toward you, wearing the right clothes, saying the right words, look at their eyes and ask yourself, do they blink like they're still getting used to it? If you're planning a trip to Glacier, stick to the trail. The markers are there for a reason. The lines on the map don't just keep you from getting lost, they keep it from finding you. The moment your boot steps off that worn path, when the silence thickens and the trees feel too close, you've already crossed into something else, something older, something watching. You'll feel it before you see it, the way time slips, the way shadows stretch wrong, the way your own breath starts echoing back. Too late. And if you find a campsite that wasn't there before, a trail that doesn't appear on the map, or a voice that calls for help using your name, don't answer. Don't speak. And whatever you do, don't go looking for the source, because once you're off the trail, you're not alone anymore. You're not alone anymore. This has been MindFuel. Subscribe for more real stories they don't want you to hear. And remember, some trails were never meant to be followed.